Valentine's Day. Yes, on Valentine's Day. Because Valentine's Day kind of sucks, and we don't need that shit. So to ward off those weird clingy vibes of Valentine's Day, we made our own on Valentine's Day that will be intimate and interesting, but it's not about love and it's not about romance. It's about creepy, strange, weird, and sometimes even haunted experiences that we've all had. So this is going to be fun because you're going to hear from 10 different booktubers, including myself. They're all different types of genre of weird and creepy. So I hope that you enjoy the video, and also in the comments below, let us know which story you liked the best. Let's begin.
Hello, it's Alex, the Bookubus. I am going to share a strange story that happened to me several years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. So me, my mum and my sister had gone away for a holiday together. We were staying in a small cottage in Scotland, and it was right on the coast on like this pebble beach and really remote. And we had a very nice time away, just enjoying the peace and quiet. And there were 2 bedrooms. One had a double bed in it and the other had 2 single beds. And we would swap around so each of us would get to experience the different bedrooms. Does anyone else do that? Or is that weird? Anyway, I'd been sleeping in the room with the 2 single beds, and then on the final night it was my turn to sleep in the double bedroom. And I remember as I was getting ready to go to bed, I could hear this noise, and I realised that it was the sound of the pebbles outside on this pebble beach as my sister was taking the dog out before bedtime. So anyway, that was that, and I went to sleep as you do. And at some point in the night, I've no idea what time it was, but I woke up all of a sudden and I could hear this noise. It was like this rustling noise. And I was so scared. I was terrified. I've never been so scared, I don't think, in my whole life. I thought about putting the bedside lamp on, but I just didn't dare move. I don't think I had like sleep paralysis or anything. I don't know, because I didn't actually try to move, but I just did not dare to move because I was so frightened that whatever it was making this rustling noise that sounded very close to me would come and get me. And I distinctly remember trying to be logical about it and try not to be scared, and I was thinking, oh, maybe it's my sister outside with the dog again on the pebbles, maybe that's what the noise is. But I knew it wasn't the same noise. It sounded like a rustling, like someone rummaging through a plastic bag or something. So it was definitely a different noise, and I don't know what could have caused it. It definitely felt like it was in the same room as me. It definitely felt very close, and I don't know why I was so scared, but I was, and I've never experienced anything like that before or since. And maybe there is a perfectly normal explanation for it, but yeah, at the time it was terrifying. So that is my creepy experience of the time when I heard a strange rustling noise at night time in a cottage in the middle of nowhere. Wait, what?
No! Hey guys, my name's Gloria. I'm happy to be included in this fantastic video. I would like to preface my little duo of a story by just saying that I personally don't believe in ghosts, but I do think this kind of makes it a little bit more interesting because I will stake my life on the fact that these 2 things actually happened. I just can't explain them. So the first thing that happened is that I think I was about 10 years old. I was in my house, it was late at night, I was by myself, and I've always been a night owl, so I was up, I was doing crazy, ridiculous things, and I wanted to do something with my hair, and being the youngest sibling, it was my divine right, my duty to steal things from my older sisters. So I decided to go upstairs to my sister's room and steal some hair things to mess about with. But instead of walking up the stairs, because that would be too normal, I decided to sort of crawl up them like a monkey because I thought that was faster for some reason. But I know exactly what this sounds like in my head to this day. Halfway up the stairs, I was sort of mid-motion when a very clear but quiet voice right beside my ear said, "I can see you." And it was in a tone that was very sort of like they knew what I was doing. They knew that I was going to steal something from my sister. And I completely froze. I think I must have just sat there still for like 3 minutes straight, just wondering what the hell was going on. There was no one else in the house. The TV, I paused the TV, I was watching a movie or something. There were no other sounds in the building whatsoever, and I distinctly heard that voice right beside my ear. Still continued on and stole from my sisters. And the other sort of unexplainable thing that used to happen quite regularly in the house that I grew up in was the smell of cigarette smoke. It would normally happen when I was by myself and when I was sitting in my bed reading near the pillow for some reason. And I moved my bed around the room quite a bit, but it didn't really matter. If I was at the head of the bed, I would smell it. And this was significant because my mother did die in that house when I was a kid, smoking-related heart attack, so that's a sign to quit if you're listening. But it was the distinct smell of major cigarettes. They were the cigarette pack that she used to smoke. And I would smell it for like 1 to 2 minutes straight, and then it would just be gone. It happened quite regularly every couple of weeks until I turned 19 and I moved out of that house. Haven't smelled it since. I convinced myself I had a brain tumor at some point, but yeah, so those are 2 strange things that have happened to me that I can't explain.
Hey everyone, my name is Lizzie and I would like to share a true ghost story with you today. So I have had the privilege of having many paranormal experiences in my life, with both being a spirit sensitive, and I also had the privilege of growing up in a haunted Victorian when I was younger. This story, however, takes place a few years before I was born, when my mother, my father, and my older brother moved into the haunted house of my childhood on Samhain Eve in 1979. So shortly after moving into the house, my brother, who was 7 years old at the time, developed a habit of sleepwalking every night. And even though the house was full of creaks and squeaks and groans, he managed to make it past my parents' bedroom, down the stairs, and through the front door that had safety locks that were installed at the top of the doors by my father, and they were actually out of my brother's reach. So he would make it past all of that and outside, some nights knee-deep in snow, just wearing his boxer shorts, and he would wander up the street, calling out, "Mommy," in a very quiet voice. As softly as he was calling out, my mother would bolt from a dead sleep, waking my father as well, because she could hear him calling out to her even though he was halfway up the block, and they would go outside and wrap him up in a blanket and bring him back in. So this was going on for quite a while, and my parents were getting really concerned, so they enlisted the help of a friend of theirs who was a fisherman, and he agreed to drive through their neighborhood really early in the morning and see if he could find my brother wandering around the neighborhood. And indeed, on several occasions, he found him quite a ways away from my parents' house. So this was a really concerning situation, and they couldn't figure out how to break him of the habit. At the same time all of this was happening, my mother started to see the spirit of a woman who was dressed in all black Victorian mourning clothes, and she would float through the hallways and the rooms of the house. She never scared my mother, but she always seemed to have been looking for something. One day, my parents were having a conversation with an elderly lady who lived in the neighborhood, and she told my parents that the house that they were living in used to have a well in the backyard, and it serviced all of the houses in that area. One day, a little girl fell into the well and drowned in the freezing cold water, and the event devastated her entire family. After hearing the story, my parents had a theory that the woman who was dressed all in black could have been the mother to this little girl, and she continued to wander the house, mourning the loss of her daughter. Besides this, my mother wondered, was the ghost of the little girl somehow interfering with my brother as she continued to wander the property looking for her family on the other side? Of course, we could never know this, but it is definitely a curious situation. The following spring, my father was digging holes in the backyard so he could put in a new fence, and while he was digging, he uncovered a very large metal ring that was completely rusted and was really, really old, and it was the type of thing that would have gone on top of an old-fashioned well. And when he uncovered this, he and my mother knew at that time that the story of the little girl who fell in the well was probably true. Eventually, my parents were able to break my brother of his sleepwalking habit, but the whole family continued to experience high levels of spirit activity for many, many years after that, until a little girl named Lizzie was brought into the house. My mother always told me that from the moment that I was brought across the threshold into the house, that the house was settled, and my parents and my brother never experienced any haunting activity ever again. What they didn't realize was that I was the one who started having all of the haunting experiences, and I had an extremely haunted childhood. But those are stories for another time. What happened when we left the house, you ask? Well, from what we hear, the spirit activity stirred up quite badly from the moment we left the house, to the point that local priests had to be called in to perform exorcisms to try to get rid of the ghosts. And that's my ghost story. I hope you enjoyed it. A special thank you to Merce for allowing me to be part of this collaboration, and until we meet again, stay spooky, guys. Bye.
Hi guys, my name is Claire and I am very excited to be featured here on Merz's channel, but I'm also really excited to be sharing this story with you. So this very short, sort of definitely unnerving story circled my whole school when I was around 12, and it was just sort of this little thing that kids would, tell each other to creep each other out in the middle of the night, but it's something that's just stuck with me, so I thought I would share it. Thank you again to Merz. We'll get started into it right now. The story is called Tick Tick Slide. One night, in a rickety old house, an old woman was babysitting her young grandchildren. Seemingly peaceful, she went about her night as the children went to bed. Yet suddenly, there was a knock at the door. The old lady, concerned at the late hour, decided to arm herself with a rusty old kitchen knife before making her way to the door, slowly sliding it open. Standing there, in the thick darkness, was a woman, disheveled in appearance, but with wide eyes. She said, with a very sharp voice,
"Give me your children."
Horrified, the old grandmother told the woman to leave, showing her the rusty knife in her hand. Yet the woman did not relent, lunging forward and asking once again,
"Give me your children."
The grandmother sliced the knife across the woman's waist, slamming the door in her face. The grandmother listened for the thump of the woman's body against the front porch, yet she heard nothing. After a long, eerie silence, the old lady peeked out of the front window, finding no one outside, no body, no blood. The following evening, the grandmother went along with her usual routine, tucking her grandchildren into bed, kissing them goodnight, before going to sleep herself. She slept on the very end of the corridor in her bedroom, whilst her children slept on either side of the hallway in their respective bedrooms. In the middle of the night, suddenly, there was a very distinct sound. At first, the grandmother ignored it, assuming it was just the sounds of the rickety old house. However, the scratches and the noise continued, growing louder and louder, until the grandmother had finally had enough, assuming that it was one of her grandchildren playing tricks on her. Getting into her night robe, She stormed out into the hallway to confront them. However, she found a much more gruesome sight. Instead, the old woman found the lady from the night before. However, she had been severed from the waist down, leaving her to slip across the floorboards, using only her nails and arms. Behind her was a thick trail of blood leading in and out of the children's bedrooms. With black eyes, she stared up at the old woman and grinned, before making her way towards the old woman with a familiar.
So my story starts in 2012, 2013, and it starts with a really weird dream. In the dream, I was riding a dark brown horse, and the horse didn't have a saddle on it, so I was riding bareback. And the horse is going faster and faster. Around me and the horse, it's all black, and the only thing that I can see is the back of its mane and, where I'm sitting on its back. That's all I can see. So the horse begins to go faster and faster, and I begin to slide over the belly like this. And as I'm sliding down, I'm sort of freaking out a little bit because I'm afraid to fall and break my neck. I hear a voice tell me,
"Grab the mane and pull yourself up."
So I did. And in the dream, I grabbed the mane, the black hair of the horse, and I pulled myself up and I righted myself. And that was the dream. A couple months go by, and me and my boyfriend at the time decided to go to this place called The Hedges. So we go there, and I was like, I want to go horseback riding. So we go to this stable, and it's us, one other couple, and the woman who's going to lead us we're just gonna walk around the property, basically. So I get on this dark brown horse with black hair, and I'm wearing this coat. And the coat, it was a weird, kind of like a puffy kind of coat. And the horse did not like this coat. And I decided to keep it out of its vision and just put it on the front of the saddle. We begin our walk to, through the woods. We come to a place where the woman is like, all right, let's just stop here for a moment. And I can't remember why she wanted to stop. So I decided to stretch my legs. And I took my legs out of the stirrups, and I was stretching my, my ankles back and forth like this. And the jacket, it just slid off the saddle, and it spooked the horse, and the horse just took off, running at top speed. My feet were not in the stirrups. I was holding on to the reins, but I'm just bouncing up and down. I'm trying to hold on with my thighs as much as I can. And we were running on cement. And along this cement road was a ditch. And it was a very deep ditch that ran alongside it. Horse is running, and all of a sudden, I begin to slide down the belly of the horse, exactly like in the dream. I begin to freak out because I know if I fall, I'm gonna break my neck. And in that same moment, I hear that same voice that says,
"Pull yourself up by the mane."
And so I do. I grab the mane, I pull myself back up, I rein the horse in, I pull the horse around, and I run back to the group. And I'm just my mind is blown, because this was exactly what my dream was. Everything was it was so crazy. And that is the one experience I've had that has kept my door open to, these other things, in the world. So it wasn't ghost related, but it was actually more interesting and something I will never forget. And I don't ride horses anymore.
When my grandmother was still living, she died at the age of 97, but when she was still living, as she got older, she started to do really weird things. Like she would wander around the house at night And one time I was watching TV and she leaned through the doorway and looked in at me, and she's got this wild Albert Einstein hair, and she's got a wash rag hanging out of her mouth. I mean, and when she peered around the corner, she scared the crap out of me, okay? And so I just said, Grandma, go to bed. And she would always go, oh, and then she would shuffle off to bed. You could hear her slippers on the, on the floor. It'd be like, shh, 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 and she'd go to bed. Well, anyway, she passed away of a broken hip when she was 97. And about 6 months later, I moved into her old bedroom because it was bigger, and I was the only person living in the house at the time, other than my parents, of course. My sister and brother had all moved out. And so about a month after that, I was lying in bed, and I was facing the wall. And the bed's pushed up in a corner. So all of a sudden, I start hearing that shh, 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 like her footsteps on the carpet. And I didn't think anything about it. And I was awake. As far as I know, I was full wide awake. And I just said the same thing I always said. I said, Grandma, go to bed. And next thing you know, I heard that same moaning noise. I'm not kidding you. I heard that same moaning noise, but on top of that, the one thing I forgot about was that I was in her bed in the first place. This was her bed that I was sleeping in, all right? And all of a sudden, I all of a sudden feel like somebody pushing down on the bed. All right, now did I turn around to see? I literally could feel somebody's back, like a smaller person's back. And my grandmother was really skinny, really small, really frail woman. And I could feel like something on my back, like a back-to-back thing. And no, I did not turn over. There was no way I was going to turn over to see if there was something there, but I literally could feel like the force or the pressure of another body up against mine. And seeing as how my mother and my father were in the next room or in their bedroom, I don't think either one of them is going to get up and get into bed with me like that. That would be really weird. All right. I think to this day that it was my grandmother. I woke up the next morning and she was gone. All right, which is really another thing about that is because my grandmother would get up really early in the morning, so for her to be gone when I woke up was not unusual. Her ghost to be gone was not unusual. So yes, that is my ghost story. Like I said, I don't think I was sleeping. I asked my parents about it. They said, no, nobody came into your room last night. What is wrong with you? And I said, nothing, I don't think. But anyway, that's my ghost story.
Hello, my fellow weirdos. My name is McWilliams, and I am so excited to be a part of this little creepy story collective. So thank you so much to Merce and Harpies in the Trees for inviting me to tell you a ghostly tale. So I haven't had any encounters myself, but I really love some of the amazing ghost stories and tales of hauntings throughout Ireland. There are many of them, but my favourite is that of Red Mary. So I'm going to tell you the tale of Red Mary. Red Mary, aka Mary McMahon, is from Lemanna Castle in Burren in County Clare, and that castle, even though now it's just a ruin, is purported to be one of the most haunted sites in Ireland. Mary, whilst you have to have a bit of admiration for her because she was a formidable woman, there is a lot of bloodshed, both in factual record and in legend, and at this stage it's kind of impossible to tell the difference between the two. But Mary was definitely a force to be reckoned with either way. She lived at Lemanna in the 17th century and had at least 12 children to at least 3 different husbands, although there could have been up to 25, many of whom meant some very unpleasant ends. Her first husband's death allowed her to build the castle, and at the time it would have been one of the most magnificent Gothic structures around at the time. She was a very wealthy woman thanks to the money that she left. She married her second husband, Connor, and when he got wounded in battle and he was brought to the gate by soldiers, she basically refused to open the door because she said at that stage he was absolutely no use to her and they might as well take him away, and they had to literally negotiate and convince her to bring him inside. So the laws back then meant that if he died, the money could be lost, and she wanted to secure her children's futures, so she literally immediately marched into town and married the first soldier who would say yes to secure her children's future. So like I said, she's a formidable woman in that sense, but there's a lot of bloody legends surrounding her. Apparently her 25 husbands, up to 25 now, not all of these can be confirmed. There was at least 3, but the legend says it was up to 25, and that she was basically marrying one a year, and when the year came she was murdering them, killing them off, and getting herself a new one. One of them was thrown from the top story of the building out the window, straight out, dead on the cobbles outside, and another apparently she convinced to ride a horse that she had trained to go straight to the edge of the cliffs and then buck people off into the ocean. In fact, there's legends saying that she would often challenge guests at Lemanna Castle to try this horse out, knowing that she was sending them to the cliff to die. Any male servant who displeased her was hung by the neck out the windows of the castle. Female servants who displeased her were hung by their hair and had their breasts cut off. There is rumours of her having harems of men that she kept in the castle for sexual practices, and when in order to keep them secret, she had them dress up as female servants, and the actual female servants were being tortured in the basement, again hung by their hair, breasts cut off and alike. She is rumoured to have killed a lot of people and to have murdered anyone who essentially didn't do exactly what she wanted or who stood in her way. She is purported to have met her end as a result of the locals finding out what she was up to, or another one is that her enemies, enraged by all of the the murder and torture and such. Either way, when she got found out and exposed for what she was doing, she was walled into the hollow trunk of a tree and allowed to starve to death within the entombed tree trunk, which is a particularly screwed up way to die. As a result, the castle is purported to be incredibly haunted by the spirits of Mary's victims, as well as Mary herself. She was known as Red Mary both for the blood that she shed as well as her beautiful red hair, and many say they still see the spectre of a red-haired woman wandering the grounds of Lemanna Castle to this day. I would love to go and visit to find out, but I might not want to find out the hard way if Red Mary still wanders that particular place. Maybe someday. We'll have to see.
Hey guys, so my story is not necessarily paranormal, but it definitely was creepy, and you can kind of read into it what you want to. So I was babysitting this little girl. She was about 2 years old, and it was nighttime, and the house that I was in actually didn't have any shades covering the windows. So me being a little jumpy, I was sitting on the couch, and I was sitting here on the couch, right? There was a TV in front of me, and then to my left, there was a large window, and it was pitch black, but there was nothing to cover it with. And of course the lights were on inside because I was inside, and so I needed light. But I was really, really on edge, and I was sitting there, and I was watching something. I don't remember what I was watching. But all of a sudden, I hear this noise, and it's coming from the basement. And I had been in the basement before, and it was just really creepy. It was unfinished. There was those lights where it was like a single light bulb dangling, and you would have to pull the string to turn it on. and there was just some weird sounds down there, and I just did not like the basement. But sometimes I would have to go in the basement because they kept some food down there. So I'm sitting on the couch. I have chills thinking about this. Literally, I'm like getting goosebumps. I was sitting on the couch and it was silent and it was dark, and I just hear this sound, and it's this like music box, creepy lullaby sound, and my heart just stops. I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? Like, the kid is asleep, I don't hear any noise on the baby monitor, and it just keeps going. It keeps going and going and going, and I'm like, is somebody in the basement? Like, is there an intruder? What the heck is going on? And so I don't know how I did this, but I gathered up all my willpower to go over to the basement, and I open the door and I stand there, and my heart is beating in my chest, and I'm holding my phone, and I'm like almost in tears because I'm so freaked out. And I see down at the bottom of the stairs in this creepy basement that there is this little music box that's going off, and there's this little ballerina spinning around. And I just about lost it, but I ran down the stairs like as fast as I could, and I'm holding this toy and I bring it up to the living room, and it's still going off. It will not stop, and I cannot figure out how to stop it. I don't remember how long it took, but finally I found a power button and I turned it off. And I was so scared, I immediately called the parents and I was like, what just happened? And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, that happens sometimes, that toy will go off. We don't really know why. It technically has like an alarm on it, and the baby, or rather the toddler, will, I guess, like bump it and accidentally turn it on. But I'm sitting here thinking, how can this toddler do that? Like, I was struggling to figure out how to even turn this toy off, and I'm an adult, right? How could this 2-year-old set an alarm so easily? And they said that it's happened multiple times. So, not saying this is definitely paranormal, but it is a really freaky story, and I'll never forget that feeling where A, I thought there was an intruder, and B, I was like, is there a ghost messing with me? So I hope my story was interesting, and thanks so much for having me on your channel.
Hello everyone, the Mistress of Horror, and this evening I'm going to be sharing a creepy tale with you from my actual life. I was invited to this collaboration by Harpies in the Trees. Thank you for having me. Now the tale. It's really short and sweet because creepiness usually ends quickly. I lived in a home that obviously had a haunting. It was when I was around 14 years old. One evening, I came from the kitchen from having dinner with my 2 brothers. We all went to our respective bedrooms. It was around, I would say, about 9:30. I readied myself for bed. By the time I did all that, it was closer to 10:30. That's when she appeared. I never will know her name. I will never know why she was there, only that she was. I laid myself down to bed, and out of the corner of my eye, a whiff of hair and a white dress was all that caught my attention. I immediately jumped up into a sitting position, and then I heard something from the hall. The glimpse of whatever I saw was gone. I got to my feet to check the hall because something felt wrong or off. As I creaked my door open, down the hall stood a woman about my height. At the time, I wasn't too much shorter than I am now. About 5'6", 5'7". She slowly walked continuously down the hall. She looked back at me. I couldn't quite see her face, but I know she was looking at me. I was frozen in place and didn't really know what to do. And she continued to walk around the corner, no longer watching me, but going on her way. Needless to say, I closed my door and put my shields up, as I like to call them, as I am quite clairvoyant. I didn't see her after that, and I dare say I didn't really care to. She didn't seem like she was evil or had any male contempt or anything of the such, no violence, but a chill did run down my spine. I didn't sleep much that night, and I will say I never saw her again, the woman in the white dress. I hope you enjoyed my creepy tale. There's much more I could tell you. Good night.
What's going on, everyone? My name's A.B. Frank, and I'm here today because Merce invited me to tell a true creepy story that happened to me. I think it was an idea from Alex from the Bookubus, and it's a really cool idea, so I'm going to call this story From Hunted to Hunter, and you'll see why in a second. This was probably over 10 years ago now. I must have been 18. And I was going back from a friend's house, which is probably just over a mile away. I'm walking down just one straight road that I have to go down before I turn off onto my housing estate. I turn right and then left, go down to my house. I'm walking a little bit and then I can just see there's just pure black, thick black, and there's a power cut. Literally, you walk into this and you can't see anything. Could barely see the pavement that I was stepping over. So there's a bunch of side streets off to the left where I was walking, so I had to cross over the roads. And then this car comes past that I can hear, I can't see it, and turns down a side street that I just crossed behind me. It has no lights on, and it comes out in front of me in the next side street that I'm about to cross, and then goes around again. And I walk a bit further down, then this car pulls out again in front of me and goes around. It only does it twice though, so that's why I'm saying that I'm the hunted, because there's a bunch more side streets down the road before I get to where I'm going. So it could come down any of those side streets in front of me. It could be waiting for me to get to one of the side streets later on. You can't see shit, by the way, pitch black. And yeah, so I could see down the road that the lights come back on a bit further down. So instead of turning right and then left where I normally would go out, I walk down towards the lights, turn right and then right again and come back on myself towards my house. Fortunately, I didn't see that car again. And what I did see though was this girl or woman ahead 30-40 meters of me, and because I've gone back on myself now, she's walking towards this blackness. My house is before it though, and she's looking round at me, I don't know what she's thinking, but I was like, wow, I feel like I'm following this girl. And so yeah, that's why I went from being the hunted to the hunter. But then the scary part of this was just being in that thick blackness where you can't see anything, you can't see across the road, and you can't see your hand in front of your face pretty much. You're feeling with your feet at the edge of the pavement so you don't trip over. Yeah, it was really scary. And then there's that car circling me, that was a scary part for me. And then there's that girl that probably thought I was following on. She was walking into blackness, by the way. My house was before that, so I don't know where she went. I presume she got there safely. But that's my creepy story. So thanks for Merce for having me on, and then yeah, I'll see some of you over on my channel.
So I hope that you enjoy this story time that we did here. This was really cool just to hear these private, intimate stories from, people that we watch, but we don't know them personally, but this is like really a nice thing for them to share. Thank you so much to everybody who participated. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you will subscribe to anyone here that you're not already subscribed to. All of them offer diverse content, so it'll be cool for your feed. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much to the Blood Crones for their support on Patreon. It means a lot to me. If you liked this video, please like and comment. This lets me know if you like these type of videos, if we should do more of these videos. Please take care of yourselves, wear a mask, and look out for each other. I'll talk to you next time.